Welcome to the Common Humanity podcast, where we are here to have real human conversations. Today, I am joined by Kyle. I know very little about Kyle, so I'm going to start with this. Kyle, who are you?
Well, thank you, Chandra, and thank you for having me on. Yeah, so I'm Kyle Cunningham. I think the short version of things is that I'm a digital nomad, software engineer specifically, and also kind of a recovering fighter. So interesting combination of things, I guess. But yeah, that's the kind of the short version.
The short version. Okay, so when you say digital nomad, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I basically I do software development, but the company I work for is completely remote. We have like a small office, but out of over 1,000 people, I think only two or three people actually ever go to that office. Um, so everyone is mostly like working from home and things like that. In my case, I kind of travel around a bit while I work. And I've done this from kind of all over the place. I'd say probably primarily traveling through like Europe and Southeast Asia, and around the United States. So um,
Oh my goodness, it's
basically
like
kind of a new thing, I guess.
that is like the dream, just to wander about, but also still get your work done.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has definitely its benefits, its challenges as well. But I can't say that I dislike it. It's pretty enjoyable for the most part.
What is there a favorite place that you have worked out of?
Oh man, that's hard to say in a lot of ways. I feel like so many places, like the whole world, I think is interesting, and in my experience, like people are friendly pretty much everywhere. Um, so I think in terms of like time like spent, like I'm probably like the most familiar with Thailand, because I've spent like a very significant amount of time there, and I definitely really love it there. So that's probably like the favorite, but in general though, it's like hard to say like even with that it's hard to say that like the favorite. So
Okay. What what was your experience in Thailand?
oh man, so yeah, Thailand's an interesting place. So I'm going to guess like most of your audience is from the US. Is that correct? Or
Um, Probably like 80%, yeah.
okay, so yeah, so I'd say yeah, Thailand is very different from America, and just kind of different in general. It really is on literally the opposite side of the planet. It's about like I want to say like a 12-hour difference time wise from like central US.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a jungle. It's very hot and very humid, pretty much pretty consistently like throughout the year. Um, I'd say it's like different in the sense that people like the social expectations are quite a bit different about like trying to be courteous and like how to act. Like being courteous in Thailand is like a huge thing, and if you're not like aware of kind of like what's going on around you, you can like really you can make people angry if you're
Hmm.
not careful. Um, but yeah, other than that though, like it's actually very laid back. It's very slow, comparatively. Um, Things happen at a bit of a slower pace for better or worse.
Yeah.
So
And so, I've been my biggest travels were to Morocco, and they had what they called
okay.
Moroccan time. So I'm assuming that by what you just said, there's something called Thailand time as well, where it things get done when they get done and people get there when they get there. And
So kind of, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like if if you say like, hey, like come over around two, that means like around two, yeah. So maybe like if you're in the area beforehand and you finish early, well, maybe you come a bit before.
Mhm.
If traffic is bad, you just show up at like 2:30, and that's just like when you show up. So yeah, the time slots and the guidelines of things tend to be a bit more fuzzy for sure.
So working there, so I assume that I mean you at your job you probably have deadlines when things have to get done.
Mhm.
Did you find it difficult, like that juxtaposition of my job requires a specific time to get things done, and where I'm living is a little more free flowing.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, it is an interesting juxtaposition. I don't think it's too bad though, just in the sense of, um, it gives you goals and things to work towards, while at the same time, you can get off and, um, things are a bit easy. Stuff stays open late if you have a late phone call. Getting food at midnight is not actually too bad in Thailand. At least in like the larger cities. Um, you can get some street food and stuff. So it's not as bad as you'd think, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. You're kind of running on two systems at once, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite stories to tell from Morocco was we were I was there for school. I went to school for architecture, and we were restoring an 800-year-old Igorm, and
Oh wow.
it was super fun. And we would make jokes that, like, the people in Morocco were the most, oh, what is the word I'm looking for? We'll go with most efficient workers. Like, you would never see them work, but everything would get done. And we were like one day in the afternoon, we were talking about like the donkey barn and how we wanted to lay down some limestone and actually like pave it. And we showed up to the site at 8 o'clock the next morning, and there was just a line of little old Moroccan men with sheets of limestone on their back laying it down already. And we were like, how does this even happen? And
Oh wow.
then they're laying it down and they're letting us relatively incompetent, college aged architecture students lay down some of the stuff, which we had, like, in America, we're like, we have building skills. But when you're working with master craftsmen, we had nothing. And so we're
Yeah.
working really hard trying to get something done. And in Morocco, they are very, very strict about tea time. When it is
Mhm.
tea, you will take a break and you will drink tea. And they take a tea break like every 2 hours. And so they bring tea down to the site and they say it's tea time. And we're like, no, 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 we're fine. We're Americans. We're going to work through the day and never stop grinding
Mhm.
away. And these little old men walked up to us and took the tools out of our hands, pointed to the tea. They're like, Tay, Tay. We're like, okay, okay, man, we'll go drink the tea. And in a day, like any project I've ever seen in America, that project would have taken a week probably, from planning to permits to actually getting the stuff together. And they were just like, oh, we want it done. Okay, done in a day. And if most of the day, if you looked at them, they were drinking tea. Like, you turn around and they had another, like, just, it was insane. And so I think it's one of the things I always remember, then, like, looking back at how we live in America and how we overwork, and we're always go, go, go. We eat on the go, we work on the go, we do all of these things thinking that we're more proficient at it. But there's all sorts of studies that show that that's actually less efficient than just resting when you're tired and being productive when you have energy to do so. So it's always interesting to me of like where I learned that lesson the first time. And um most people I've talked to who have traveled anywhere else in the world, um their stories have come back similarly. And so, do you have any stories like that from Thailand or anywhere else that you've been where they, I don't know, are a little more relaxed about life, but still completely effective at what they're doing?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I can speak, to Thailand for sure. I think um, one of my favorite things there is, especially like towards the weekends, as it comes to like time to get off work, you'll often see people, they just go to, whether it's 7-Eleven, and there's, a million 7-Elevens in Thailand, they're everywhere, or just the shop or something. They'll get some drinks, some beer, some sodas, whatever, and they'll just literally just hang out on the sidewalk, and chat about stuff. And it's one of those things, and I see it like all the time, and all different kinds of people in Thailand will do stuff like this, whether it's like the guys from the mechanic shop down the road, or the delivery drivers, or the people who got out of the hospital. And it's one of those kind of cool things, like you don't see it quite as much in the US, I think, where it's just like people take that time, they just step away and just kind of like just chat, just hang out for a bit. Um, I went on like one kind of like little rafting tour thing, and I remember the employees were just scurrying around, kind of like riding each other, like I don't know, like a horse or something, like kind of in the river, like washing each other's hair and stuff too, just messing around. And their boss was like right behind them, like just laughing along with them. Um, and it's just like one of those things to me. It just kind of set off in my mind. It's like I think for a million years I was like, oh, there's no way this would ever fly in the US. Like things tend to be like a little more strict, a little bit more like buttoned down. Um, but it's not always, yeah, it's a very like go kind of thing here. And like we always have to like kind of be buttoned up, and like, looking like very pro all the time. And I think it's a bit too much at times, maybe. We kind of lose that human element a bit, of just, of just messing around, just having some fun. There, it's kind of, it makes things easier, I guess. It makes life a little bit less stressful, just to take a breather and slow down. So at least, yeah, that's kind of been my, definitely being in Thailand. It's a little bit difficult for me. I feel like I'm very much I tend to be a go-getter type of person. I'm, always out like wanting to do something new.
Hmm.
Um, and so like being there is like always a reminder, is like, man, just like just take it easy, go, get some food, hang out for like a few hours, take a nap, something like that. So
I like I like what you said a lot about that they have that human element, that they're just allowed to be what they are, and here we have to like kind of have to contain that a little bit, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of jobs I've had, there's a lot of monotony to it. Like a robot
mhm.
could do it, and I'm one of those people. I'm like, let AI take over, let them do the work, and I can go wander in the
Yeah,
forests. Like that's fine with
oh, for
me.
sure.
um,
Yeah,
because I would rather be wandering in the forest, essentially. Um, but I like that because it gives me hope. Because even though, and I mean, I see it in the US too. I've been um in workplaces where the human element is allowed. And I know when I was a boss, I tried to create that kind of culture because I want to be able to be allowed to be a human. And so I have to allow my staff to be a human as well.
mhm.
And I think that it's something that we're missing a lot of, not all the time, obviously, but it
Yeah,
is something that I think we could all use a little bit more, just being and less doing, more being, less doing. But
yeah. I think I love that way of putting it. Actually, I think that's great.
is there anywhere that you have traveled that you are like, nope, never ever going there again? Absolutely not.
Oh man. Um, so I don't know if there's like a never ever again. Um, there are. I think there are challenging places I've been to, and I think this is the other side of travel, which is like you go certain places and you're like, man, this is really, really beautiful, really amazing. And I think other places are a bit, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. They're a bit sad or dangerous or some combination thereof.
Mhm.
Um, I'd say like for me, like the Philippines was kind of like that. Very just like lots of very stark poverty, and not nice things. That's one of those places where I feel like definitely my appreciation for my situation like multiplied, I think, kind of quite a bit. Um, but at the same time, yeah, it really, really was eye-opening in a lot of ways. Um, you know, and not in the best, not in the best of ways in certain respects. But
Yeah.
that's the world we live in, I would say. So
Yeah. I don't know if there's any place I've been that I would not. No, lies, Florida. I've been to Florida multiple times and I never want to go back. One, it's hot. Two, it's muggy. Three, it's Florida. Um, but I
oh
suppose
yeah, I was gonna
someday I
say, yeah,
might
Florida
take my
man's
kids
a
to
real
Disney or
thing.
something. What was
Oh,
that?
there you go. Yeah. Oh, but I was the Florida man, I think, is a real thing.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the biggest part of it is really I don't like humidity and heat, and that is
Mm,
Florida. Um,
yeah,
and I've seen it, so I
through
don't
and
need to go
through.
back. I can go somewhere else that's humid. But yeah, I think that's probably the only place on my list where it's like I don't want to go again. Um, is there a place that you haven't been yet that you are either planning on or just like really, really want to go to?
Oh man, yeah. There's a bunch actually. Um, I yeah, so I guess I tend to be a pretty adventurous person. So um, I'm like pretty happy to like go anywhere. I've wanted to go to, like, I haven't gone to South America at all, which I would love to, or Africa for that matter. Um, so either of those and like almost anywhere would be, yeah, it'd be interesting for me. I think when traveling, you always have to, have, I think, a certain amount of caution,
Hmm.
kind of be aware of what you're getting into. But I think, beyond that, it tends to be, not too bad. Just, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, really interesting places. I want to see like the Andes Mountains and stuff, and um, yeah,
I
get a
know
chance to get some things in before I, at least before I'm too old to move around that much anymore.
you've got a long ways before that happens.
Yeah.
I know I set a goal for myself in college to step foot on every continent. And so I was planning this big trip to Antarctica, and that did not happen because I decided to get married and have kids instead. But it's still on the radar, just not as epic of a trip. But
Yeah.
that's one that I'm really looking forward to also because I I love the cold. I mean, as much as I hate
Okay.
the heat and the humidity, I love the cold, like sub-zero temperatures. I live in Wyoming and I wear shorts and tank tops all winter long. So,
Oh man. True, yeah,
yeah,
truly a winter person.
yes. Um, but what was I gonna say? Oh my goodness, my brain just like um it was to what you said, but when you're traveling, you always have to have like a little bit of caution, a little bit of, know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's funny because I would say I'm probably we'll go with irresponsible traveler. Not always, but like I agreed to go to Morocco. Well, let's just start with this. I was bad at geography. I agreed to go to Morocco. I studied Arabic to go to Morocco. I paid to go to Morocco. And 2 weeks before I went to Morocco, I was like, huh, I should probably figure out where Morocco is. And had literally no idea I was going to North Africa. And then
Oh,
was
wow.
a 20-year-old girl who was just like, I don't want to travel with the students because I want to explore other things. So I'm traveling around
Mhm.
Spain and Northern Africa by myself as a 20-year-old woman. And I'm just like, and my mom's just like, oh my God, you're going to get kidnapped. You're going to get, and I'm just like, Mom, I will throat punch anyone who comes near me. Like, don't worry about me. But I feel like on the one hand, you should definitely plan when you're traveling. On the other hand, I am more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal.
Okay.
Like, we went, we had a trip to New York City for a project senior year of college, and everyone's like, okay, make sure you go out with a buddy, make sure you do this. And like, I wasn't a lot of friends with a lot of the people in my class, so I didn't have a buddy. Like, there was one guy who was like, I'll hang out with you. And I was like, okay, well, there's this place I want to go, and this place I want to go, and this bar that my favorite like punk rock band was born at, and it's in like in between Little Italy and Chinatown, and like in this little hole in the wall, not great neighborhood in New York, like in New York City. And he was like, I don't know if I want to go there. And I was like, okay, I'll go by myself. So then this guy's like following me because he's just like, he's too afraid to go out, but I wasn't. And he was like, I have to protect her. And this is not how that went. But then, like, he did that. Then the next night, I wanted to go out and see something else. And he was like, no, 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 I can't do that again. It was terrifying. So I'm just like walking around New York City by myself at night as a 22-year-old woman. And I'm just like, but, but I also, and my mom hates this about me. I would call her from any story, like stories that I have of any fun adventures that I would get myself into. And I would always start with, don't worry, everything's okay. And then she'd just be like, oh my God, what is happening? What went wrong? And I'm like, everything's fine. I'm alive, they're alive, everybody's alive. We're good. But yeah, so my point is, I would recommend that if people are going to travel, plan, take a buddy. And if you're not going to do that, just have an invincible attitude and resting bitch face, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, 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 you can't like, yeah, you can't be like totally afraid either because you're all,
Yeah.
if you do that, you're not gonna do anything fun. I've had a couple good times like in Bangkok, like coming home at like 5:30 in the morning after like wandering around and having no idea where I ended up. And I am still alive. I'm still here. So um, I think thankfully for the most part we live in on a pretty friendly planet, which
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, as long as you're not going around trying to piss people off, you're probably not, gonna, end up too bad. So
That's true. Um, so steering a little bit, you said you are
mhm.
a recovering fighter.
Yeah.
So first, you say, okay, first, what kind of fighter? And when you say recovering, why recovering and not taking over the world with fighting, I guess?
Yeah. So the type of fighting. So I do a part of like my reason like for like going to Thailand and being there like quite a bit is the national sport. There's a type of kickboxing. It's called Muay Thai. Um, and yeah, I've done Muay Thai for like a fair amount of time. I've fought before. Um, right now, like I'm recovering for a handful of reasons. The big one is that I tore my ACL in training. So my left knee is kaput for a while. I'm getting that repaired this upcoming week, actually. So I'm excited for that, although I'm not going to be moving around for a while. Um, but yeah, also yeah, like fighting is I'm getting pretty old for fighting. Like I'm 36. So to get like an injury like this at 36 for for something like fighting, it usually kind of starts to spell the beginning of the end. At least, for competing. So kind of, it's what it is. Like I have mixed feelings about it a little bit, to be honest. Fighting is like super like adrenaline filled, like in ways that like I think is very, very few things are probably like have quite that much adrenaline and quite that much going on. But yeah, so
Do you have sights on something else in the future?
yeah, actually. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do. The ACL is like kind of recovery is mostly what's on my mind.
Hmm.
Getting the strength back after that surgery takes quite a while. Can take up to a year to really return to like the previous strength. But like kind of beyond that, I'm just I'd say I'm into athletics in general. So probably just be doing other things, probably just like a little less full contact uh than Muay Thai. So I do quite a bit of archery and golfing and things like that. So try and preserve my knee. Hopefully won't have to like get it like totally replaced when I'm older. So
Yeah. Well, I've also had knee injuries, so I feel for you because ow. Um, and then recovery also not pleasant, but um one of the things that so I'm a personal trainer, and one of the
okay.
things that I have noticed about athletes in general is so athletes never really stop being athletes. They might change modalities.
Mhm.
So, like someone who is a like does travel basketball growing up and like that's their main thing, and they get to a point where like, okay, basketball is not my main thing anymore because it's taken a toll on my body, and they go into powerlifting or strongman, or they go into triathlons or like obstacle course races, and they do that for a while, and then they maybe get bored of that as well and find something else. Even like you look at professionals, Michael Jordan was just like, I know I'm the best basketball player in the world, but also I want to be bad at baseball too. Or he was not great at baseball. I also watched sports Space Jam a few weeks ago, so it's fresh in my brain.
Oh, nice.
And he wasn't the only NBA player to go play baseball either. So
Yeah.
um anyway, but it's one of the things that I love is that as humans, like a lot of times we pigeonhole ourselves into like this is what I am. Like growing up, I was a competitive softball player, and I haven't played softball in 2 years, and it sort of is killing me. But also, I have other things I enjoy that take up my time and that I compete in, and it's fun. And so I don't have to be that as my thing anymore. And it's like some of the people I train are seniors, and they're like, well, I used to do this and I used to do that, or they've never done anything, and then they're just like amazed by what their body can do, and they use it to garden, and that's totally
Yeah.
awesome because gardening takes a lot of work. um
Oh, it does. Yeah.
but I just think it's amazing how as humans we can transition from and transition, adapt, and even just grow and become a new version of ourselves. And I think you see that a lot with athletes.
Mhm.
So my point is, I have very high hopes for your athletic endeavors in the future
Well,
because
thank you for that so much. Yeah, I'm hopeful for myself as well. It's been like an interesting journey. Like I'd say yeah, I'm physically like super different from like before I started doing this. And for the better. I think it's been given, yeah. So it makes me excited actually. I think it's given me like a very nice like athletic base in general. Um, and yeah, there's other things to do inside the fight world too. I think I'm going to be doing a bit of coaching in the future, as opposed to fighting. But you know, that's not a bad thing. And I know what it's like to be in there and be getting hit. So
It's much easier to listen to a coach who's been hit before than one who hasn't. So
oh
yeah.
yeah, it's always you know, easy to, you know, look at someone on TV and be like, oh yeah, you know, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. It's hard when you're tired and someone's hitting you and you're hurting and like there's a bunch of noise and stuff. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing to do. It's crazy that humans choose to do this.
Agreed. I'm not a big fighter, not gonna lie. Like, if someone attacks me, yes, I'll throw hands for sure. But um fighting sports have never been my cup of tea.
Mhm. Like
I
yeah,
like
I can understand that.
I
So yeah, what you were saying, what yours?
oh well, so I mean I grew up playing softball and
Mhm.
volleyball were my two main, and I'm a competitive power lifter. So like me, I my battle is between me and a barbell, and that's me,
Yeah.
myself, and a barbell. That's it. Like just trying to be better than whoever I was yesterday. Um, which I love. And I don't know, I always think about fighting sports because I feel like I don't like knowing myself. I'm big on sportsmanship, right? I play a lot of
Mhm.
team sports and I coach youth sports and I do all this stuff and I'm big on sportsmanship. And I don't know if I could be a good sport in a fighting sport. I feel like someone would hit me and like something's gonna flip in my brain and I'm not gonna like it's not gonna be a sport to me anymore. And I think that's why like I don't know if it's just my PTSD or what, but like people come swinging at me, I don't like I have a little brother who's 14 and his whole life he would play fight with me. And sometimes
Okay.
I would not be having it. And like 2 years
Hmm.
ago, maybe he was 12, so he's like about my size. And he just kept picking a fight and picking a fight and picking a fight. And like there was one point where he like I don't know if you can even see it, but I'm technically crippled. Like I have no fat tissue on my left shoulder. So it's like
Okay.
sensitive and it hurts a little bit, whatever. And
Hmm.
so he made a threat of like, he's like, well, I'll just go after your bad shoulder. And there was just something that just like flipped in my brain. And I just like pinned him down. And I was like, do you really want to fight? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna walk away now because that little button got pushed in my brain and like I felt threatened and I just like and I just so I don't think that I could do it as a sport. Like life or death, yes. Sport, no. So that's
Yeah, well, I totally get that, and it's not, you know, the funny, it's not the easiest of things in some ways, because like my last fight, my opponent, we talked like before the fight,
yeah,
said like, hey, what's up? How's it going? You ready for this? Yeah, like let's do it. And so yeah, then we fought, we went for it, we totally went for each other. And then afterwards, you know, he came over, he asked me if I'm all right. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, are you good? He's like, yeah, I'm good.
see,
It's just like, it's very funny. Like, you know, you're very friendly. And then, but like for those moments that, you know, for you know, the fight's like 15 minutes in Muay Thai. For those 15 minutes, yeah, you know, you're going all the way.
yeah, and that's where I think that switch in my brain is broken. I think that's what it is.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
team sports, I mean, I've played a lot of friends in sports and like can can talk to them like up to bat. Like one of my best friends was the catcher for our rival team, and so I'd be up to bat talking to her while another friend of mine was pitching. And
Mhm.
like we would talk a little bit of crap to each other because we were teenagers and we could and whatever. But there was always fun, and it was always
Mhm.
like at the end of the day, like even if we weren't teammates, we were still friends, and we still had respect for each other. And I just, yeah. So I think it takes there it takes something special in your brain, in just yourself, to be able to do combat sports with and still have that aspect of humanity, of like of just still caring about the person who you're about to punch in the face, you know?
Yeah, it's kind
So
of
more power to
yeah,
you.
it's a bit split personality. Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's good though. I guess for me, like, you know, you if you have the nice thing about like being in combat sports is if you have any animosity towards your opponent, you have every opportunity to you know, to settle it with them. You know, and just what happens happens. You can, you know, if you're not up to the task, that's all on you at that point. So, um, yeah, it's you know, it's surprisingly chill. Like I think more so, I think people would be surprised at like how chill the environment in the fights like tends to be. But so
I don't know. Um I've seen MMA fights a couple of times, like on TV, and I always joke about it because it just looks like they're hugging each other, just like really long hugs, like a couple jabs, but then hugging. And because I'm not a fighter, and so I have no basis for like what is actually happening. And I didn't choose to watch it. I was at a place and it was on. And so like
okay, yeah.
so it wasn't like I went to go watch the fights. I was just like there. But I'm also a huge nerd, so I would like watch them and be like, okay, so what gives people an advantage? Which I have no idea if this has any actual merit, but every single MMA fight I have watched has been won by the person who has a shorter reach. Like their arms are shorter, and so the smaller person has won every single one of them. I don't know if that has something to do with it, if it's actually an advantage, or if it was just a coincidence of what I've seen. But I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it just happens to be like a coincidence. The like yeah, if you're longer, you have more range, and if you can keep someone like at distance, like then you're good. If you're shorter and you can get inside someone's reach, then you're good. I think like especially like if you have good, you know, if you're gonna get like good wrestlers, they're usually like
Mhm.
good wrestlers are usually like stocky guys. They're usually not too long. So um you know, you get like you know, and I think that's it's definitely one of the interesting things is like you really do see like just the different capabilities of different people's bodies and um you know, different people, you know, their styles and just the way they are as people can match up very differently. Sometimes like you watch a fight and everyone will say, oh yeah, this guy is just a goner, he's like gonna, you know, he's gonna die, and then comes in and like totally destroys his opponent. It's yeah, so it's like I feel like sometimes it's just kind of like you take like a human drama and distill it down
Mhm.
into like a few minutes, and you get combat sports. So that's um, just like you know, things that usually take months just take like a few moments, and it's yeah, it's very stark you know, results.
I like, so when you were talking about the like a guy who people didn't expect to win, and then he's the one who takes over, you know, it reminded me of NFL. And so many times when people would be like, well, this is the team that's going to win because they have beat all of these other teams, or their defense is substantially better, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm a huge fan of underdog sports stories in general. That's the thing that probably brings out the most emotion in me. Um, but it like my brain related to that because that's what I know more of.
Mhm.
And like talking to people about the idea of like it never matters what, it doesn't matter if you've played the same team before. If one team won and the other team lost, like if you when you face an opponent, whether it's fighting or a team sport, like the only thing that matters is what happens that day. It does not matter who you beat to get there. It does not matter what training you like either of them did prior to this. What matters is how they face off head to head in that moment in the arena. And I think there's so much beauty in that, because the smallest thing, like, this is just like a random thought, but I mean,
Mhm.
if you're a in the middle of a fight and you somehow like one guy has an advantage, but then his nose starts to itch and distracts him for a split second, like that could be his undoing. And there's so many variables that could come into that, which is one of the things I think is fascinating about all sports, is that there's
Mhm.
so many variables, and seeing how they all play out is one of the reasons why I love them so much. But I I like that idea of like, I mean, team sports are one thing, but two individuals going head to head, that like so many of those variables are internal and like their personal preparation for it. And that's, I think I'm gonna have to start actually paying attention to combat sports now. I think that's what's
Yeah, I
happening in my
mean,
brain right now.
well, no, I very much agree with you, like from the, from the aspect of like looking at all the variables and kind of seeing how things play out. And I think that's one thing that definitely like, so like I grew up playing soccer and stuff like that. And I think one of those things is like just kind of, having the confidence and being resilient and being able to like take a loss, because you really do never know. Like on a different day, you can, be the team or the person that comes out on top. It
Mhm.
depends on like on so many different factors, and even like even these with these underdog matchups, or people think, oh, someone's going to get smashed, but you do the math, but the math doesn't work out like, it really never works out like how you think it would. Maybe it does like 70% of the time, but that other
Yeah,
30%, like it's just all over the place. You just really have no idea of how like, how the dice will roll, I guess.
yeah. I think that sports are so cool.
Oh yeah. No, very,
um,
very enjoyable.
do you have a favorite sport to watch?
Oh man, to watch, yeah, probably soccer, I'd say. I tend to be like attracted towards that the most. Other than there's obviously the combat sports stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I think beyond that, it tends to be either like hockey or sometimes like kind of like motorsports, like F1. And what about you? So you mentioned the powerlifting and such as well. So like that's like completely for me. That's like I'm like way out of my depth on that. I would love to hear some more about that too.
Oh man. So, okay, one, just so if you've never been to a powerlifting meet, you should go to one, even if you never plan on
Okay.
competing, because there is just
Okay.
something about a room full of really strong people supporting other strong people. Like,
Hmm.
it has probably been one of the most accepting communities I've ever been in, because so there is the aspect of like, yes, you're trying to win the meet, but you get 3 attempts,
Okay.
and you kind of have an idea going in to every meet what your attempts are going to be. Like, you have a range. You're like, okay, this is my opener, and usually the range is like if it wasn't moving exactly how you want to, you're going to increase by like 3%. If it's moving fantastic, you're going to increase by 6%. And it's like in a range somewhere like that, right?
Okay.
And the goal is to lift as much as you personally can. Um at the end of the day, so in a meet, there's sort of like there's small opportunities to compete against somebody else. If you like break somebody's record on their last attempt, then they allow you to take a fourth attempt to like to see who can secure the record, but you get one more attempt. You don't just get to keep like PRing back and forth until somebody can't lift anymore. Like you kind of have to make a call, like, can I lift 20 pounds more than I did last time? Or am I going to go 3 pounds up or whatever it is? They always go in kilos. So it's weird because I'm in America and we don't do the metric system. But so it's fascinating in that sense. So most of like, to me, the competition in powerlifting is always against yourself. Like, even though there's other people there, the competition's against yourself because you literally can only do the best you can do. You can't be like, okay, well, I like, it's not basketball where if somebody else scores higher than you can go score again, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. Like, you have 3 attempts. So I mean, for the professional level, I don't know, you'd have to talk to them how they think about it, but like, it's possible that if you think you can do a little bit more, and like, because right after your lift, you have to tell them what your next lift is going to be. So if someone then lifts above that and you don't know what their attempts are going to be, you're not told what somebody else's attempts are going to be. So you literally can just do the best you can do. And that's one of the things I love about it. And people are so incredibly supportive. And it's like, in the crowd, there's just, so like anyone who, like, they're in your flight, so they're like competing at the same time as you, or they're a different flight or whatever, there's all these people and they're all super strong people. And like, if you're trying to pull a deadlift up off the ground and you're sort of struggling, and like the whole room will just scream like, get it up, you got this, like, and it just echoes through you. So like, there's this whole thing where people lift more on meet days because of the energy in the room. Like, you can almost always lift more in competition than you can in the gym, because in the gym you have like your own adrenaline, you have your own internal motivation, you have all of that, but you add in the atmosphere and like it just kicks everything up a notch. And so I've pulled weights in meets that I've never been able to do in a gym, but like, I'll walk into the meet and be like, okay, well, I guess I can do that. And then one of my favorite ones was in North Dakota last year, because it was my deadlift, and I was trying to, like, my last record was at like 325, something like that, or 320, and I was trying to get more than that, and I got 330 something, and the next one up was 336, and that was what I had to get a state record. And if you got a state record, they had these flames that would shoot up, but you only got them if you got a state record. So I was like, I have to get this off the ground because I like pyrotechnics. Like, that was it. That was my thing.
Nice.
And like, I'm struggling and there's like, it's always like this internal fight, because our bodies can do more than we think they can. So one of the fascinating things about powerlifting to me, and most sports, but powerlifting like actually trains it very specifically towards the end, is like the last 3 weeks of training, or whatever your schedule for peak is, like, you've trained your body to be able to lift as much as it's going to be able to lift. And the last couple weeks is training your brain to believe you can lift that much. And that's it. Like it's just like
Okay, yeah.
doing heavy weights for like not even a lot of reps. You just do heavy weights and you're like, okay, like convincing your brain you can do this so that you, when you get on the
Hmm.
platform, you can do it. And so like I'm in the middle of this pull for my deadlift and it hurts, and part of my brain goes, no, this is painful, I don't want to put it down, and the other part of my brain is like, I want fire, and I'm like, okay, and I just lift it up and the flames shoot, and I knew that it was a good lift and I
Oh,
was
there you
so
go.
happy. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so it's pretty fun. I would recommend it to pretty much anybody, even if you're not pulling 300 pounds or 400 pounds or whatever it may be. Like, just competing is like, if you can bench press a bar, which is 45 pounds, and you can squat a bar, which is 45, like if you can do just that, compete. Just to say you did and to be there, and it's just, it makes me so happy. So obviously I like powerlifting.
Oh,
So
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. I'm honestly, you've sold me. You've sold me. I'm gonna have to. The moment I get the opportunity, gonna be checking out the powerlifting meets for sure.
yeah, it's a good time for sure. But yeah, I don't know. In general, other than that, I just love sports. I coach sports, I coach athletes. I like sports are my life. I always used to make jokes um back when I was like my very short-lived time on dating apps, because they'd be like, "What are your interests?" And like the handful of dudes I talked to, they're like, "So what do you do with your free time?" And I'm like, "Play sports." And they're like, "What do you do for work?" "Coach sports." "What do you do when you're not doing sports?" "Watch movies about sports." They're like, "Do you do anything other than sports?" And I'm like, "Recover from sports. I recover from so I can play more sports." And they're just like, "Is there anything else to you?" And I'm like, "I like Disney movies." Like that's it. Disney and sports. um so yeah. Uh I kind of have a pretty one-way street of a mind in that regard, but I like it, so it's fine.
Oh, it's good. You gotta have, the competitive personality, I'd say.
Yeah.
Um, which, yeah, it's not a bad thing. I mean, obviously, like I'm in the same boat. So,
Yeah. All right, so we have to start wrapping this up. So we're gonna move on to our game real
Mhm.
quick.
All right,
So
let's
you
do
get to
it.
answer first, and because you're the guest. So, first question: what are two things you love doing by yourself?
Ooh, man, two things I love doing by myself. I think one is just reading, especially like articles and newspapers and things like that, and sometimes books. I think the other is, ooh, man, just like, yeah, going for walks. I like going for walks by myself.
I like that. Do you, because this is one of my favorite things about going on walks, do you enjoy being able to smile at strangers? And like, because one of my favorite things about walks is like, good morning, good morning. Like, I'll never see you again, but like, so is that a people who like going on walks thing, or is that just a me thing? Is what I'm asking, I
Oh no,
guess.
I love it at least. Like I'm like the NPC in a video game that just says like some random thing, and I'm just like it kind of tickles me that I'm like that person for a moment. So
Yeah. I like that reference. That's good. Um, I would say two things I love doing by myself is driving, because then I can play whatever music I want to, and I can sing as bad or as well as I want to, and I can go as fast as I want to, and it's gonna be fantastic. So driving. Um, and I think the other one I'm going to say is watching cheesy movies. Like,
ooh, that's a good one.
I don't like watching cheesy movies with other people, but I really like watching cheesy movies. So,
Yeah,
like,
I get that. Yeah, you gotta get it out and not like do like without the collateral damage, I guess.
yeah. Well, and like watching movies in general, because I don't like people talking through movies. I watch like not all things that I watch, but a lot of things I watch are things that you have to pay attention to or potentially read subtitles or something. And then there's always people who are like, what are we gonna do today? And I'm like, not interrupt my movie. That's what we're gonna do today. Like, why are you talking to me right now? So I think not just cheesy movies, but probably watching movies in general, I prefer to do by myself than with people. Because, like my kids,
Mhm.
I love it when we're watching a movie for the first time together and they're like, Mom, what's going to happen? I'm like, this is my first time seeing it. They're like, do you think this is going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we should watch and find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So, question
Nice
two.
to get your piece for sure.
Yes. If you had the power to change one law, what law would you change?
Ooh. Man, um, that one's like super hard. Um, ooh, man. Um, yeah, I'd say the Citizens United decision around like spending money in politics. I'd probably change that. I'm sure that'd be controversial for some people, but yeah, that's my answer at least.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what you're referring to. Can you elaborate?
Oh yeah, so this was just like a decision that allowed like corporations to really to to spend as much as they want in terms of like lobbying,
Oh,
um, which yeah, I personally I think that should be limited a lot more. And yeah, I would like to see that changed, and that would have to be yeah a change by Congress or something like that. So yeah, maybe one of these days. My hopes are still high.
yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I was literally talking about this morning, like that I think lobbying should be illegal because that I don't think they have any person's best interest at heart. Um, and that's what our government is supposed to represent is their people and not
Mhm.
their corporations.
Yes,
But
very much so.
yeah, um, mine's gonna be an easy one, and it's gonna be blanket across the country. Um, that so whether you want to say it's Roe v. Wade or whatever, um, I think the government needs to keep their hands off of my bodily autonomy. So
Mm.
that is, I don't, I would write it much more eloquently into law, but basically, I don't think the government has any right to tell me what I can or cannot do with the body that I live in. And yeah, so yes.
Yeah, I'm very much agreed there. Yeah, I very much, I guess personally I'm a believer in like that we all own ourselves. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, our last one. Looking back at your life so far, what are three things that turned out good for you?
Oh man. Yeah, I think quite a bit, thankfully. I think well, yeah, one thing I think that's definitely turned out is just being into computers and nerdy things. Um, I mean, I had like I was kind of into it, but I kind of like I doubled down on it a few times, and
Mhm.
I'm very much glad I did. That's one thing that's never really been a mistake. Um, Getting into something cool that is like evolving to the future is I think never a mistake for anyone. I'd suggest it for whatever it happens to be, yeah, go for it. Um, Other than that, couple see traveling. Number two, just traveling to different places. I don't think there's ever really a time I've like regretted traveling. Even like the Philippines was maybe more difficult, but like I don't regret going there at all. I would just probably like think twice if like there was the option to go back. Um, and I'd say the third one is just actually just really just spending more time with people and doing less work, which is some people might disagree with me on that one, but just at least for me, like I feel like I'm very proud of the things I've done in my career and with my work, but at the same time, if I were to like look back on the things that I've done, it's usually the times with people that I really like remember the most. Like I don't really remember those times too much where I sat down and worked on something for like a week. I'm kind of like happy with the end results, but I don't have like these nice memories. And so I think to me, like just I haven't regretted making nice memories with folks. So those are my three.
I like that a lot, especially that last one. That one, oh, that makes me so happy. Three things that turned out good for me. My kids are pretty freaking awesome. And it's totally okay that I chose to take that route instead of going to Antarctica. Just means I have to take them to Antarctica someday. That's what I've told myself.
Yes.
I would say still in process, but leaving my job, which I thought would be my career, and starting something of my own. I can't say that it's turned out good, but it's turning out good. It's we're getting there.
Nice.
And then I think the other big thing is probably something that I'm most proud of is the work that I have done to bring my family back together, because like my mom, older brother, little brother, and myself, like we very easily could have all gotten estranged from each other and gone our separate ways and taken on life on our own. And I take a lot of pride and credit for kind of putting my foot down and being like, no, we have healing to do, and we all have a little bit of work to do, and we have done that work, and our family is like a family unit for probably the first time in my life, and that's something that I am very proud of. Like, yeah. So
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing to be proud of. Yeah, I mean, family, I think always comes first.
okay, so before we shut this down for good, is there anything that if you were to tell the world, what's one thing you want people to know?
Yeah, just I'd say the one thing I'd say is just don't be afraid to get out there and meet people and experience new things. I think that's probably for the Americans in the audience. Like Americans tend not to get out quite as much. Go out there and do it. It's a cool world, and it's not not quite as scary as it might seem.
I love that. Well, Kyle, thank you for joining me on the Common Humanity podcast and having a real human conversation with me.
And thank you so much, Chandra. I had a great time.